Hey guys, what's up? It's Todd Lamb here, alphanation.com, and I am here with Ari Nazan of our partner channel, Submissions 101. Today what we're going to cover is one of the most unthinkable events you may encounter, and that is a home invasion. You woke up in the middle of the night and you've discovered that that thump wasn't a tree hitting your house. It's a bad guy who's come into your house and he's either looking to do harm to your family or he's looking for your prized possessions, whatever the case may be. But you need to be prepared. And how is it that you can be prepared, whether this situation is a situation that it's an unarmed encounter where the bad guy doesn't have a weapon and you haven't been able to get to your weapon, or you can't get to the kitchen and get a knife, or whatever the case may be. We're going to cover a couple options that you can use to your advantage to not only survive that, but protect your family who's sleeping in their beds. So I'm going to turn this over to Ari right now. We're going to talk about a few things. We'll talk about some different holds you might use, some weapons of opportunity that are right on your body at all times, or at least nearby, or how to prepare for that particular situation. Take it away, bro.
Awesome. So one of the things that most people, I should say the majority of people, they don't have a plan. So you need to have a plan before someone comes busting through your door. And a plan being where your exits are in your home. How to navigate your home. Obviously, you know the home better than the intruder who's coming in, so that plays to your advantage. Remember, home invasion, we're not talking about a 10-minute affair. We're talking about less than a minute. They're in, they're out, okay? So violence happens very quick, so you have to have a plan. What we talk about in combat often is what the mind knows, the body knows. So we talk about visualization. When you visualize about things, the mind basically, it thinks it's already gone through that format. So if you visualize, okay, someone's broken into my house, what am I going to do? And you constantly play that scenario over and over. When the real event happens, your body will click into action. So that's something you have to do. If you have no plan, if you're not prepared, you're going to be screwed. That's just plain and simple. So you have to have a plan. Know the layout of your home. That's the first thing I would always say. Second thing is, if you have the opportunity, if someone does come busting through your front door, can you barricade yourself in a room? Remember what I said, less than a minute, they're in and out. So if you can prevent them coming in and time is starting to tick, they're going to be in and out much quicker. So if you can barricade, if you have prepared barricades for your door, they do actually sell them in some stores on how to actually bolt doors down. Super good. If you can't do that, you may have to improvise. Use your cabinet maybe to put in front of the door, or a bed, something like that, to prevent someone breaching that door. Very, very important. They actually do this with school shootings. When people are coming in, active shooter, they'll barricade the door because time is on your side in that way. So that's a big suggestion for me. The other thing that I kind of want to talk about is weapons of opportunity. So you may live in a state where firearms are available. You may live in a country where they're not. In Canada, you may have to lock up your weapon, so there might be a trigger guard. Your ammunition's not with your gun. So this will prevent you obviously from using a sidearm or a weapon. If you live in the United States, depending on what state you live in, that may be a different thing. So you have to know where your weapons are, or weapons of opportunity. Always have them in a place that you can access quickly and you know where they are in your home. Now, weapon of opportunity can be absolutely anything. So let's just say, for example, that you're caught unaware, you can't get to your weapon, your firearm, and it has to be a weapon of opportunity. So Todd and I were talking about it. It could be maybe you have a belt on, and you may be able to take off the belt and use that as a striking tool, as a distance weapon, as a choking tool. It could be that you have a hockey stick in your house, using it as a distance weapon. Anything that's going to be a force multiplier is what you're going to use in a home invasion. They're coming in to either rob you of your money or your life. I mean, that's the assumption that we're working on. So you need to do whatever you can to protect yourself and your family.
Absolutely. So what Ari was talking about earlier is a concept that we call stress inoculation. We use that in special operations. Everything is rehearsed. We don't go into anything blind. We know the layouts. We rehearse our skill sets. We rehearse our role. Same thing happens if you're dealing with a home invasion. When you walk down that hall, you hear that thump, you feel that ice in your veins, and suddenly now you realize that it's a bad guy and you're squared off. Oftentimes, all they want to do is get out. But if you're in a situation where it's a third strike offender and he doesn't want to leave the house because you've now seen him and you can identify him, and he's thinking, I'm going to have to take this guy out, what are you going to do? Lucky, maybe for you, that he's unarmed, so it's going to be a Donnybrook or whatever the case may be. We're going to give you some skills that you can use in that situation to at least neutralize the threat, hold that guy in position till the police come 10, 15, 20 minutes later sometimes, depending on where you live. All these different kinds of scenarios that you need to think about, but we'll give you just a couple quick things that you can do to protect yourself and your family in that situation. Okay guys, so the way we're going to deliver this is in two phases. We're going to first talk about strikes, so that'll give you the opportunity to stop the threat initially, and then phase two of the plan will be how do you control it? What's a high percentage move that's going to allow you to either hold that guy in place, break an arm, do whatever the case may be, but it's going to be a high percentage move that'll allow you to transition from initially overwhelming and stopping that threat to controlling the situation.
Now, if you watch it, I strongly suggest you actually go on YouTube and you look up street fights that happen, and you'll see that the majority of them happen. They're very quick, and it's usually the person who wins is the person who overwhelms the opponent. And overwhelm, I mean by striking, getting in close, and delivering multiple attacks and strikes onto that person. So I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a grappler by nature, but I also know the importance of striking. If you don't learn how to strike and you just try to go hands-on and grapple 100% of the time, you're going to find yourself in a real bad situation. So I implore you, learn how to strike, keep your hands up, and overwhelm your opponent. If you play the defensive the entire time, you're going to be overwhelmed. You need to go on the offensive and take that person out. So Todd and I are standing off here. I already know that this is about to go down. So I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for him to start launching strikes. I need to start launching strikes on Todd immediately. My hands are coming up. I'm always looking for, we refer to as the button. Remember, I'm making my fist very, very strong, clenching my fist. And as I come in, I'm looking for the chin. This is the button. When you do it, it basically causes the brain to jar back and forward. And I'm not just looking for a one shot. I'm trying to overwhelm. This is the area that I'm going for. And I'll tell you right now, usually in situations where strikes are being thrown, especially fists, they do get broken. But you've got to remember the totality of the situation and what can happen. So there's an old Chinese saying that says when two tigers fight, one is injured and the other one dies. You want to be the one that's injured, and you want to leave your opponent KO'd on the mat. So as I'm overwhelming, I'm coming in. I'm not necessarily being at distance. I need to overwhelm, so his hands are coming up and he's playing the defensive. Also, your weapon of opportunity, elbows. Very, very strong, especially in short range. I'm not trying to throw them out here. Remember, this is not a Muay Thai match. I'm trying to overwhelm and come in. I'm very close. I'm protecting my body. And when I'm in this range where I can actually touch Todd, it's elbows. And I'm hitting really hard along the jawline, along the chin. Another opportunity to strike someone is behind the head or the neck. So if you look right here where the ear is, if you can strike with elbow or back fist, this is what we refer to as like a KO center. It's not a myth. It actually works really well. There's Japanese names for it in Japanese martial arts, but that's an area that I will often strike. Another area that people try to go for, but often miss is this area, which is basically the solar plexus. If you can shut down the diaphragm and they've stopped breathing, that's a great opportunity. But the problem is everyone is focused on the KO in the head, and that's what they're going for. But if you're in close and you can land a strong uppercut to the solar plexus as they're protecting their head and they can't breathe, then you're going to overwhelm them even more.
Okay, guys, so that's critical. The first part of that is to come in. First, you've rehearsed it, you've thought about it. How am I going to deal with this situation when it happens? You've given the guy an opportunity to leave. You've told him to get the fuck out of my house, or this isn't going to be pretty. He decides not to. He's a third strike guy. It's game on. You don't know whether he's got weapons or not, but you're going to assume it. But he starts down that hallway to you, or whatever it is, wherever you decide that this is going to go down, and you just start raining down strikes on him in all those places. Button punches. You're looking to disrupt into the diaphragm. All of that kind of stuff. So that's going to set up your opportunity to take further control of that situation with phase two of the plan. We'll cover that right now. Okay, so now we're going to go over phase two of that plan. You've delivered enough strikes. There's a window of opportunity that you need to take advantage of. This is a high percentage move that if you can keep your mind in the game and get this move, you'll control the situation.
So phase 2, like I said, as a jiu-jitsu black belt, I'm always looking for strikes to set up my grappling, and that's kind of what you should be looking for as well. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to be overwhelming my opponent. As I do that, as I move into this grappling range, what I want to do is, the best place to be in a fight is actually behind someone. One of the strongest martial art moves there is the choke from behind, or the rear naked choke. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we call it mataleo, which basically means lion killer. And I need to position myself behind Todd. How am I going to do that? Well, I can simply walk around him, but he's probably going to be moving, and it's a dynamic situation because that's combat. So after I'm overwhelming and he's got his hands up here, I need to move his body. So there's a couple ways to do it. One, I can push the shoulder and I can pull the shoulder. I can do one of these to get his back. When I do it, it has to be a push and a pull very quick. It can't be just like this. It has to be I'm punching, I'm in, and then snap so it turns. Once that happens, I've got a clear path to his back. The other way that we can do this is if I'm in close and I can grab onto Todd's head, cervical control. We talk about it in paramedics, obviously when you're doing a C-spine, when someone has a neck injury, but it's the same thing. Wherever the head goes, the body must follow. So if I can grab onto his head, and it doesn't have to be fancy, that's the great thing about self-defense. It's grabbing it and pushing his chin in the opposite direction, and that moves his spine. I can't just simply tug and pull him. I need to work the mechanics here. So I always think that his spine obviously goes right down the center of his body, and I'm moving, and that's moving his spine like that. Then I have a clear path to his back. Once I get the back situation, I'm going to be coming in, and my hand's going to be doing a rear naked choke. And so how we're going to do it, it's going to come down at a diagonal like this. So I'm not necessarily doing it. This is a trachea choke, and this will cut off the blood, or cut off the air from the lungs. And what I want to do, this is going to be a blood choke, so I'm going to come down at an angle like this. My hand's going to be coming up. You'll notice the crook of my elbow is pointing straight down. It's where his chin is. I'm going to be cutting off his carotid arteries on either side. One side is my bicep, the other side is going to be the blade of my forearm. I come around here. Now next, there's a couple ways to clinch this in. I can just do a gable grip and take my hands and I can squeeze tight here, or I can come around and I can landmark on my bicep. My hand comes behind his neck. Now, one thing I want you to do is when you're doing this, it's going to be very quick. Don't leave your hand hanging over his shoulder. You can break your arm. It's just a natural lever. So when I come in, I'm making a fist, and it goes right behind Todd's head. This fist behind his head is going to be pushing his head forward into the crook of my elbow, and I'm going to be squeezing tight. Now, also what I want to be doing is pulling him backwards so he doesn't have balance. If I'm leaning forward like this, he can flip me over. So I'm always trying to pull back and squeezing. When you're doing it, the choke will take anywhere from 3 to 10 seconds, and you're going to squeeze as hard as you can until they go limp. An unconscious opponent is the best opponent.
Absolutely. There's a couple things you need to think about there. If you leave that on, there is a risk that you could kill that person. You need to be prepared to defend yourself after the aftermath of that event. We're not here to counsel you on that. You'll have to talk to a lawyer to deal with that situation. What we want to do is keep you alive, okay? So phase 2 of that plan, you're going to look for a choke. The other things that we're going to talk about in future videos is, what if you're initially on the defensive? What if that guy comes down the hall throwing blows? What are you going to do? There's plenty of things that you can do in order to set up your offensive, and we'll talk about those in future videos. But for now, when that person's in your house, you've encountered them in the hallway, you need to be aggressive. The first thing you need to think about is how many strikes you can throw, as hard as you can throw them, and then set yourself up for that choke and take control of that situation. We're not here to tell you that this is the only way to do it. This is one way to do it, okay? There's lots of ways to defeat your opponent. The point is, you need to prepare, you need to be thinking about how it is that you're gonna do that. Anything to add, man?
Some other things you need to think about is, I always operate on the assumption that the person in front of me has a weapon. And I'm always looking at the hands. They talk about this in policing, they talk about this in self-defense. Always watch the hands of the person in front of you, because where the hands go, they may be pulling a weapon. If you can't see what they're holding, you're going to be caught by surprise. And that's something that I'm always looking for. So always operate under the assumption that they have a weapon or that they're going to deploy a weapon in a self-defense situation. If you go on the assumption that it's going to be, as Todd said, a Donnybrook and it's just a fisticuffs, and all of a sudden they introduce a weapon in the middle of the fight, you're going to be caught unaware. And that's something that you should always assume. And also, that's why we talk about first strike. You want to take the person out as quickly as possible. This is not a prolonged battle. This is not a sport match. This is not MMA. There's no referees. It needs to be quick and it needs to be dirty. You just have to be willing to overwhelm your opponent. The fantasy of the one-shot knockout only works when usually your opponent isn't looking or their hands are down. Remember, you've confronted someone, you're in the hallway, you're both on high alert, so you're ready to go. The adrenaline's going, it's going to be overwhelming. So that's why it has to be multiple. Don't look for the one-shot knockout, because if you do and you admire your work, you're going to get knocked out yourself.
Absolutely. Okay guys, I'm Todd Lamb from alphanation.com. I'm here with Ari Nazan from submissions101.com, and we've partnered up to bring you the best information possible to keep you safe, keep your family safe, and get her done.